Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 193. Is it three?
93.
I might have forgotten to update the podcast title.
You're good.
Uh, 193 of the Pika Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, Emerson, and joining me, we have my co-host, Anomaly.
Hello.
And this week, we are, well, we're talking about 10.2.6 a little bit.
Trying to.
We don't have a lot of
Trying to.
information on it.
No one does,
But
which
there's
might
been
be the issue.
some I don't know. There's like Holly Longdale felt the need to respond to somebody about Twitter about 10.2.6. So I don't know. There's something there. We also have Cataclysm Beta.
We do.
Um,
Best expansion since Mists of Pandaria.
I actually haven't checked yet whether I have beta access.
I haven't either, actually. No idea.
I do not have beta access. So,
That's hilarious. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, Cataclysm Beta is out. We'll be talking a little bit about that, a little bit about some of the Cata related stuff. Maybe a little bit of like, there's some Warcraft log stuff that I don't know. Maybe we'll get into some of that.
Nice.
But yeah, before all that, I guess there's also MDI this weekend. We'll talk about that too. Before all that, how's your Reclear? I think you actually did it this week.
This was our Tuesday first raid in 2 weeks since we killed Fyrak. And we did our Reclear, and it was interesting, I'll
Okay.
say. So like we had basically, I think I mentioned this. We went through a little bit of reshuffling. I'll always talk to healers, but I think in our guild we've sort of recruited a couple people. Like we have a new Boomkin, we've got a new Demon Hunter, and then we have two new healers currently and a third one coming on. To basically replace myself and one other healer that's sort of taken kind of half
So
a step
you're
back.
actually swapping right now?
Yeah. Yeah, so we actually
Wow.
did that so two of the healers joined, so we had sort of our four, main healers, right? And yeah, did some reclear on the Hunter, which was interesting. Hunter was eye level 463, so
Oh
walk into
boy.
Mythic. Yeah, it was rough. I beat the tanks every fight, so I feel like that's the bar that I'm at right now. But
Yeah.
it was rough. I did try and sit myself for Smolderon. We ended up wiping, I'll say, probably like 5 to 8 times. And it got to that point of the wipes where it's just like, okay, main squad in. So like I had to
Yeah.
jump on the monk. I actually ended up healing Smolderon on the monk. Then went back to Hunter, cleared everything for the first time ever. So playing ranged is so different, I'll say. And
Mhm.
then even like playing melee, I'd say like if I was a melee DPS, I probably wouldn't find the fights that much different. But range is so weird. Like on council, I had to play the duck. So I was one of the two people
Mhm.
that traded ducks back and forth. It made sense. I do shitty DPS, but
Yeah.
also I had never been I didn't know the timings, like when you're supposed to
Yeah.
keep it, when you're not. So like we wiped like I think 4 or 5 times the council because
Yep.
I'm an idiot.
I
Um
mean, that's our first Reclear. We wiped more on council than anything else.
Yeah. But funnily enough, so like Laradar and Volcross basically the same. Turtle's great. I can immune one of the soaks, so I got to say that out loud, which is funny because my guild tried to kill me on that. But then Nimue, totally different is ranged.
Uh-huh.
Like the lines are very hard. Like I used to be like healing that fight, I'd be like, dude, I have so much to worry about like healing and moving for the lines or whatever. It's
The
like
lines
how does range
grow.
keep
The lines
dying?
grow. Yeah.
And like the gaps in them are so small, and then
Yeah.
you have like the fact that you're crossing like the lines that damage you to get the whatever
Mhm.
the debuff on you. And then of course playing range, I'm not used to like, okay, I can't stand all the way back because I got clipped by the first ad. I was in the second like back ad group
Oh, you got clipped by it as it spawned.
as it spawns. Yeah,
Oh
so because I was too
no.
far back, so there was like had to
Well,
play
on
closer.
the upside, they don't actually need you to kill the back ad
No, they
because
didn't. They crushed it. In my group. But no, it was a good reclaim. I mean, we did that, and then basically Tuesday was everything but Tindril and Fyrak, and then Thursday came back. Killed Tindril in a relatively short amount of time. It only took us like an hour.
Nice. That gives
But
me hope.
all mains though. So like I was
Yeah.
back on the monk healing on Tindril. We're gonna
Yeah.
probably do Tindril and Fire all mains for like the next couple weeks, or at least the next I think 2 kills. And then did Fire and Fire was we didn't kill it unfortunately. I spent
Mm.
about probably 2.5 hours or so on Fire. Um, and honestly, we had I don't know what the I mean the issues were. We had like one or two new people on the fight. Like our boomkin is a new boomkin, so it's like they weren't used to the knock, so that was a little bit messy. They weren't used to like had a couple of intermission issues. Got
Yeah.
to phase three probably like 3 or 4 times.
And
And then
just
we had a
not quite
tank
enough to
die.
get it. Oh
Yeah,
no.
well, we had a tank die after the second or yeah after the third wins. So like the
Oh,
boss was like
just
five
right at the
percent,
end.
and I had to pick up the orb, and I just was not used to it. Like I got a blaze, tried to drop it,
And
or tried
couldn't
to
drop it in
move,
time.
drop, and then roll, and just didn't drop it in time and clipped
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I wiped there. But no, I think the plan is to actually extend next week and kill Firac, and then go from there. We have plenty of time to like re-clear this stuff. So, I think we're just gonna extend and make sure we get at least the Firac kills in and go from there. So,
Yeah, I
um,
mean that's not unreasonable.
yeah.
This was our second week since killing Fyrak.
Hmm.
We also had a bunch of people out. It was actually crazy.
Oh.
Like we knew we had some people out. Um,
Hmm.
like our raid leader was out, right? So that was a big deal. We had a couple other people we knew were out, and then just like one guy's computer just doesn't like he just like it's crashing
Oh no.
in the middle of Nauru. He just goes offline on Discord and in game,
Okay.
and then he does it again on Agira.
Oh no.
So he spends the rest of his night troubleshooting that instead of playing the game, which is exactly how you want to spend a raid night, right?
Oh, that sucks.
We had another guy that had some IRL stuff come up and no showed raid, and like it's fine, like IRL happens, but
Yeah.
that was also kind of unexpected. So we were just like it was a complete train wreck. Um,
Oh, that's
but
rough.
but we got through the first 6 bosses in like an hour.
Oh, that's not too
Despite
bad.
everything that went wrong, that actually was very smooth. Then Smolderon. We had like we almost like cleared in 90 minutes. We had like
Mm-hmm.
a 5% wipe on our third pull of Smolderon, and then it took the rest of the night to kill it.
That's rough.
It was just
Yeah,
yeah.
that's rough. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, Smolderon is like it's funny that fight. Luckily, we used the skip, so Smolderon was early in the night for us. I think if we would have waited and did it
Yeah.
like in actual order, like it would have been a lot worse. Because yeah, we had like just like random wipes to like people getting hit by rings or like
Yeah, that
people
was
dying to flame waves, and
we
it's
had some
just
really tragic baits too. Like we had
yeah.
a great pull, and then just like all of the melee in the on the last bait, all of the melee get the swirlies, and
No.
like the melee weren't playing super conservatively with it, so like all of the melee getting the swirlies just meant that there was no path,
Yeah, yeah,
and like if one of them got it, it would have been fine, but because it
yeah.
was like four of them
Yeah, you're not getting around that. Oh, that's so
you're not
rough.
gonna live running back through that. And then yeah, we had another one like with an hour left in raid. We had a 1% wipe where our rogue DC'd 30 seconds into the fight.
Oh no. Oh
And it's like
god.
it's not even they could still have DC'd and we would have killed it if they had DC'd a minute and 30 seconds in instead of 30 seconds in, we would have killed
Yeah,
it. And it's just like,
just a little bit more
oh
damage. Yeah, those are the frustrating, I'll say, like plays are like, yeah, like
yeah,
when you
yeah.
you get that, yeah. Like you lose people out of that. Yeah. Like we had I don't think we had anything. Actually, I was trying to think if we had something like that this week. I don't think we did, but yeah, those are always like super frustrating where it's like if you could just been online for like half a minute longer,
Yeah.
like we would have killed it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're not pulling Tindril tonight. Again, no raid lead this weekend. I'm not running that boss solo. We still have a few other people out, so I actually like I don't think we have enough freedoms to do it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like, because it's 2 of our hunters are out.
yeah. That's an issue.
Um,
Yeah.
and we have a second paladin now. We have a another ret paladin.
Okay.
So we
Nice,
have
nice.
that in our court this time. But we are still short freedoms.
That's funny. Yeah, we had our priest is no longer gnome anymore. So like our disc priest like
Yes,
needed a
our
freedom now.
healers are not gnomes anymore either. So they're back
Yeah.
to needing freedoms for the big set at the end of phase 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough. Yeah. So yeah, no, definitely good luck. I mean, hopefully for us, this is a short week coming up. We'll kill Tindril or sorry, kill Fyrak, and
Yeah,
that'll be it. But yeah, I'll need to find a raid on my hunter though, which will be annoying. But
we have. Oh, you're already saved this week. I was gonna say we
yeah,
run an alt mythic on Mondays,
yeah, no, my hunter's saved this week.
but
Maybe I'll
next
talk to you
week,
next week. Yeah, maybe next week I'll get in there. Um, I need a weapon so bad. God, I've lived in Rise for like the past 2 weeks. It's rough. So I've got something like 30 or 35 Rise clears and
that's a
0
lot for you.
weapons.
Holy shit.
Hey, look, man, when I have to actually have something to gear, I do put the time in, even though I hate it. So, um, but yeah, no, yeah, that's our Reclear. So we'll see how it goes. On fire. But I to be fair, we did a lot better than I thought we did. We had some like silly wipes. Like we wiped to Larid. I didn't mention this. We went to like Laridar because like the second like hose group, like one of the people had no idea what they were doing.
Oh
It's
yeah,
their first time in there, or
yeah,
not their first time in there, first time doing the hoses, and like it is what it is. And people were like messing around with soaks. He screwed up some soaks. So um, yeah, it was a good to be back. It was super light and airy, like type
yeah,
of raid for Tuesday, but
yeah.
yeah. I'm glad Tindril did not take as long. I'm fine wiping on Fire at this point because I already hate that boss and like the frustration's there. Tindril though being a quicker kill was nice. So
Yeah. Yeah, like we only wiped to Smolderon. Actually, okay, that's a slight lie. We wiped once to Council because I pointed the charge at the wrong boss.
okay, nice.
We had the song plus charge overlap,
Yeah.
and I just pointed the boss at Pip.
Nice. That's I mean might have worked. I don't think maybe people haven't tested that yet. Maybe
Yeah,
that's the new
well, we have now
strategy.
tested it. It does not work.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Good to know.
But yeah, uh, that the healers did have a good time trying to keep the raid alive through that.
Oh, I can
So,
imagine.
we also healed council this week. We had a little bit of an adventure. Our one of our preservation evokers took as much damage as I did on blood decay last week.
Interesting. Okay.
Um,
Jesus.
just for
What are they
funsies.
doing? Okay. Oh, okay. That's
Just,
interesting.
just hanging out in the flowers.
Dude, our healers do
So
so much better.
if one of our healers is re-rolling to DPS anyway, so we healed it this week.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, the four heal, I think we also four healed this week, so it wasn't too bad. I mean, all of our wives were not to healing. It was just to
Yeah,
being stupid,
yeah,
like with Duck. So
yeah,
um but cool. No, that's yeah, it was nice to get back into raiding, I'll say. I missed it. I missed the killing bosses thing. So
yeah.
um
Speaking of, speaking of, well, okay, maybe not killing bosses, but MDI.
yeah. MDI is going on. It's global finals, so this is the final week. And it's actually, I guess, final Sunday, so the champion will be crowned later today. Yeah, first round's going on at least today of the semifinals, Echo versus mandatory. But yeah, no, MDI, it's been actually interesting. I've watched a lot more MDI than I have in the past. Primarily because and I'll be completely honest with you, the only reason I did was Echo lost like last week in like the group stages. They still
Hmm.
made it through to global finals, so they're still in the global finals, whatever. But they ended up
As we were speaking, they lost the first dungeon, first map of their semifinals.
it
They
was
won the second one, so they're now on the third.
on Rise, yeah. But they lost in a Taldazar, which I feel like that's a them dungeon. Like that's a dungeon them, but then their Waycrest is really good. They do a wild strat of pulling literally everything onto like the whatever the Drudger boss is.
Yeah,
The bio boss, which is just a wild pull. Um, But yeah, no, it's been really interesting. There's been a couple of cool strats. We talked a little bit about Echo's like fall strat, right? Where they sort of like ported around and did some like snapping. There's been a couple other snaps that people are sort of,
That was Rise, right?
oh, Rise, sorry,
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
Yeah, that was Rise. There's been a couple other, I should know that because I've lived in Rise and Fall doesn't have the portals. There's been a couple other strats like that too in other dungeons, I'll say, where like you basically meld, get a summon, and then also put down something like a DH puts down their sigil or whatever,
Yeah.
and snaps mobs up. So no, it's been cool to watch. There was a really cool strat yesterday we talked to sort of mentioned earlier that I think it was a Eclipse used against Perplexed, where they instead of it was in a fall key, and instead of using the final or the portals after is it the second boss to like fly basically to the back area with the two final bosses, they essentially they're not rocket boots. It's another item that basically gives you a speed burst plus slow fall, and they jumped off the side and basically angled themselves perfectly that they hit the platform that the Chromie portal's on, and you don't waste time using the dragon. Well, basically waiting
It's
for the
faster
portal
than
to
doing the
spawn,
dragons. Yeah.
yeah, and then riding the dragon down. It's like I think uh dude, Dratnos was talking about. I think he said it basically is about like a 15ish, 20 to 15ish second save, and they won that key by like 10 seconds or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was a cool little strat that they had put together for the fall. So but yeah, it was super super close. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Last Hope, not Eclipse. It was Last Hope versus Bald Bandits, and they won the key by 4 seconds. So with a death. So yeah. Um, but yeah, no, it's been it's a cool thing to watch. I'm much more into this MDI, I think, than I have been in the past. And like I said, just because Echo, honestly, last weekend they didn't look good, so it was nice change of pace. Um,
I
to see
mean,
somebody else do well, right? I think that's the biggest thing.
I don't know if it's so much Echo didn't look good as it is other teams
That's
uh,
true too.
are very clearly gunning for them and showing that they are capable of doing so.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, like the last Hope strat, like I said in that fall, like Perplexed has looked really solid. With only like maybe like one slip up, or one map that they looked off. So I'd even mandatory, like the mandatory win. I don't know. I watched part of it because it had finished before we started the podcast. But mandatory's first map win over Echo, they literally just outplayed them. Like it wasn't like Echo made a bunch of mistakes. I think both teams had one death.
Yeah.
They just did everything faster than Echo, which is crazy. So no, MDI has been a lot of fun to watch. So far. So we'll see who wins it. I think my money's still on Echo, honestly. I think they still clutch it out
It
here at
is
the
the
end.
safe
But
bet. It is the safe bet.
yeah. But no, it's definitely a cool it's cool that everything's so close. So
Yeah.
um
Makes it more exciting.
yeah, exactly. Um Plus I've been doing Mythic Plus keys, so maybe it's the other reason I'm slightly interested. Um Well, cool. Well, the other thing, I guess maybe the other thing is there was a couple of hot fixes out there in Mythic Plus land, for various dungeons right now. Um, a couple of them that are I think a little bit more interesting than others. One is that um, in Darkheart Thicket, they've addressed some issues where like some abilities from
Tree
the Oakheart
boss.
boss, yeah, the
Yeah.
tree boss basically would go off after he's defeated, such as like the Strangling Roots and the Crushing Grip. So basically, just you don't randomly lose a
That
player
crushing
after.
grip. Yeah. If that goes off and the tank and the boss is dead, a lot of tanks actually just die.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, like Blood DK, you're dead. That's it.
yeah.
Game over.
Yeah, so no, it's good to see some adjustments, I'll say there. Um but yeah, no, that's sort of the, I guess there wasn't really like Waycrest Manor had some changes to like the wildfires that spawn out in the courtyard and it damaging certain or sorry,
Not damaging certain
not
mobs. Yeah.
damaging certain mobs, and then also only damaging creatures that you're in combat with. 'Cause I think maybe if you got lucky, you were able to get some extra damage when you're not in combat with something. So um
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Just a couple of, I mean, minor hot. Like there. To be fair, like we're sort of. I feel like I'm rambling here because this is the only, we'll say, I guess, hot fixes we've gotten really have been around dungeons themselves.
Well,
Um,
we do have some coming in this
oh,
coming
do we?
Tuesday,
Oh, do
right?
we know? We
We
do
do.
actually.
We
It's a little
do.
segue.
We got some coming in for class buffs. Mistweaver getting nerfed.
Yikes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's really, it's not super big class dating. It's pretty late in the tier.
Hmm.
It is druid buffs, evoker buffs. I do think that, all right, I
This
just
is
have to
so
point out
stupid.
this. I just have to point out this developer note. Preservation has been underutilized lately, in part due to the range restrictions of the specialization. To help compensate for that, we are, and then this is I'm no longer quoting. We are not doing anything about the range restrictions of the specialization.
It's just it's just so funny that like they made so the actual thing they said that like basically they're allowing or they want preservation workers to traverse the battlefield more easily and safely. But like when you have mechanics that require you to be in a specific position that is away from where either the rest of your
Yeah,
group is or where you want to focus the healing,
yeah,
moving quicker doesn't help you.
yeah. Like
Like
Nimue, if you are an evoker on that fight, you are having a bad time. Any evoker, actually, on that
yeah.
fight, you are having a bad time because, like, you're gonna have a bad time trying to play in melee, trying to pretend to be like a melee, DPS or melee healer. Um,
Yeah.
if you try and play ranged, you know, you're gonna be out of range of everybody constantly, or you're gonna be ignoring the soaks. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's
and actually, even if you do ignore the soaks, you're still going to be out of range of people because the range are going to be spread the hell out doing the soaks.
yeah, no, it's I don't know how our one preservation I don't know how preservation does it because like I will say that as a Mistweaver when Essence Font had the 25-yard range, it was the most frustrating thing in the world. Like to basically if I'm in melee doing something like and hitting an Essence Font, I just know my range are not getting hit. And it's like great, I'm missing out on probably over half the targets because typically we run a little ranged heavy. So it's just like, yeah, it's just normalize it, dude. I get like I don't understand that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this seems like a bad hill to die on. Honestly, like
Yeah.
I think I hope that in the War Within we see this change. I don't know that they're going to do it in the middle of an expansion. It's like it
Yeah.
doesn't
No.
matter for raid at this point, right? Like it would make raid better. It would make the specs better in raid, which they need. All of them, except well, augmentation doesn't really, but
Yeah.
the others
The other
do.
two. Yeah.
I feel like it's honestly the only reason they haven't. Maybe like if they have not yet reached the conclusion that they have to just give it a 40-yard range like everybody fucking else. PvP is probably the one thing standing in the way.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, no, it's yeah, we'll see. I mean, the range like low range is always annoying in general from like just from that healing specific thing. Like just not having a consistent range across all your abilities is annoying. So
Yeah,
um definitely not fun. Um yeah, and a couple other class, I mean, I guess we can get to the big one, right? There's some hunter buffs, mage buffs,
yeah.
But the big ones are Mistweaver. So Mistweaver going through it. We're gonna skip the first. Well, I guess we'll do them in order. So all healing reduced by 6%. So this is a flat or a nerf of 6% healing to Mistweaver. Um, sucks, but more like six seems well. I would say it seems high, but to be fair, I have literally have not looked at logs or like comparisons to other healers in the last couple weeks. So
It's
I'm assuming
kind of low, honestly.
really that's I think the problem is, and this is the issue with Mistweaver currently is that if you play the spec well, you are literally godlike.
Yeah,
Like I think this is the it's been a while since Mistweaver has been like this, but I
it
think there
hasn't
is a
been like
lot
this
of
since like Haste Weaver.
yeah, but even then like Weaver was like get the gear and then you basically play the same game everybody else does, right? As long
Yeah,
as you hit your buttons in the right order. Like this is like there's I think a lot of skill expression here that that gets lost in sort of like the detail where like Mistweavers I think generally are doing well, but like there's
Yeah.
definitely a gap between like your top performing Mistweavers and
It's
the
kind of
rest of the
like
pack.
it's kind of like Disc Priest, where like Disc Priest, I think, and this maybe is why they went for 6%, is like maybe they're bringing it down to where like Disc Priest is, right?
Yeah.
Because they are buffing. They buffed Restoration Shaman like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're buffing Restoration Druid and Preservation Evoker today,
Mm-hmm.
or not today, Tuesday,
Tuesday.
this
Yeah.
coming week. Um, so like maybe that's the idea, is like, you got Mistweaver that was above, and then the others that are below, and they're just like bringing them all towards the middle.
I mean, that's probably what they're trying to sort of center on. So, um, but yeah, so it's a flat 6% healing reduction. It is what it is. It's not the end of the world. But they also did buff some specific spells, which to me look to be not trying not to impact Mythic Plus as much
Yeah,
versus Raid. So the first buff is Shaylun's Gift received a healing increase of 6%. So essentially it stays flat, right? It'll get the aura and then it'll get buffed by 6%. So stays flat in terms of the healing it does. Jade Fire Stomp healing and damage has been increased by 6%.
the
The
and
damage
damage is
is
an interesting one.
yeah, I'm wondering if this is just they don't have a knob to turn to affect
Yeah,
damage versus healing. But in any event, the stomp healing goes up by 6%, again offsetting the nerf, and then expel harm healing increased by 6%, which I don't know why, because expel harm literally you hit the button and it's a full heal. Like no matter what the situation you're in, you are full healing yourself. Like it just I don't get this. Like I literally on Fyrak will eat a frontal from one
hit
of the
expel
ads
harm and you're good.
during wildfire, hit expel harm and be top before the wildfire hits me or whatever the AoE thing hits me. Like
Yeah,
it's just it's a stupid good ability that I get frustrated with because it has been trashed for so long and now it's too good. It's like they basically like seesawed it, right?
it is like Brewmaster's expel harm, except you don't have to get your orbs first.
You just have a 15
Although
second cooldown.
although to be fair, you only really with what's it called, Spirit of the Ox, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
the one in the class tree is, that gives you extra healing when you're low HP, right?
Yep.
That one works with orbs, so you really only need one orb if you're low HP. So
Not
that's
too
kind of
bad.
like a 15-second cooldown.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. But but no, yeah. So it's I don't know why they're buffing it, but they are again keeping it flat based on the aura buff coming in. So no, I think and I'm almost positive this is for Mythic Plus, right? From a defensive value perspective in M Plus, not to affect your defensive abilities.
Yeah,
Um so yeah, so that is the those are sorry the nerfs to Mistweaver. I think like we said, I ultimately it's reducing your healing, but I don't think this makes Mistweaver, to be fair, unplayable, and to be also fair, like still not one of the best raid healers you can bring. Like, I think
yeah.
you're still locked into that spot from. I mean, number one, I think it's still the best monk spec across the three in terms of like your relative power to the rest of your roles. Maybe Brewmaster is better in a raid, but to be fair, I
Not this
don't play
tier.
one.
I don't
Yeah.
like Brewmaster's good, but it's like you need a blood DK. Well, you need DKs. You need grips on Fyrak.
Hmm.
And since DPS DK is not good, that means you bring blood, one of them or two of them,
Yeah.
if you can. And then like your other choice there is like Prop Paladin is like clearly head and shoulders above others for utility this tier with spell
Hmm.
warding. Just lots of great places to use spell warding.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
tank meta is so often defined by utility on the last two bosses, and spell warding is good on both.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, I still don't think I don't think this moves Mistweaver into some unplayable tier. It definitely sucks, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. We probably need to be reined in.
So
So,
like to for clarity here, I've pulled up the statistics on healing on HPS, um, from raid, right?
yep.
And let me convert these to like regular numbers. Um, Mistweaver's median across all bosses is 240k. The next highest is Disc Priest at 230. And then the restoration and preservation buffs they're both around 220. So 10k HPS is around 5% of these numbers. Like a 6% nerf basically turns that 243k, 244k about, into the 231 that
Yeah.
Disc Priest has. So that's like kind of bring, like what I was saying, like kind of bringing it in line with Disc Priest and trying to bring Preservation and Restoration up. Holy
Hmm.
Paladin's an interesting one. Like it's pretty low, but that's everybody's playing it, and that's partially because it brings freedom and autumn and
Yeah.
communities and Devo Aura.
It's a very good class still.
Yeah,
So yeah. Um, no, yeah, I mean it's no, I think it's probably a needed nerf just if they want to try and keep every healer as close as possible. It's just an awkward thing to come. It's just I think to me more like we haven't had any sort of tuning in the past couple weeks, it feels like.
yeah,
So yeah, to see it now, it is what it is. So um but cool, yeah, those are the clash changes coming in. Those go in this reset, so those will be in, Tuesday NA, Wednesday EU, and then Thursday for APAC.
yeah.
In terms of when they go live.
And
Um,
you want
so,
to skip ahead a little bit? Speaking of Tuesday,
oh yeah,
we got a nice 8-hour maintenance plan for Tuesday. And for those that maybe aren't familiar with what that means, normally that kind of maintenance is associated with a patch.
yes. Whether it's an actual patch being applied or we sometimes see these pre-patch like a couple
Yeah.
weeks before a patch to get everything ready in the background, right?
Yes.
For patch day. But yeah, we have an extended maintenance, which is yeah, we haven't had one of these in a while. Which could mean 10-6 on Tuesday? Question mark.
Could mean, or like you said, it could be prep to like put it up the following week.
Yeah.
But it seems like soon TM.
Yeah. Yeah. Because this is coupled with a tweet from Holly Longdale. Of course, what is her role? Executive vice president or some executive producer of of WoW. Um,
Something like that. She's
yeah.
high up. She's high up.
Yeah, she's either like basically she runs all of the WoW franchises, we'll say, all the WoW different versions nowadays. But she tweeted out in response to a Taliesin and Evitel tweet around like no news on 10.2.6. Essentially, she replies with, and this is a quote, sorry, question mark. We have learned that not having news and deets is frustrating for our creators and players. Stick with us for a minute. Our goal is a bit o' fun. As always, we are here to learn and serve, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if we should read into the wording of this tweet. 'Cause it says like a bit of fun,
I,
learn and
I
serve.
mean,
I don't know if there's a little bit of play on words there, but yeah, I mean, essentially, I think 10.10.26 having zero news is a very deliberate thing by Blizzard,
yeah.
which I think I don't like this for the simple fact that it allows like in general I don't like when companies give you zero news about something. I agree that
Yeah.
there should be some things that can be kept secret or some things that could be, not talked about, right? But the fact that there's zero news essentially leaves really only two sort of outcomes, right? In my mind, it's either the expectations were here and they deliver low
Yeah.
and everyone's upset,
Yep.
right? And everybody hates it and it's like, well, it's a 2.6 patch, so like to be fair, it's going to be very small anyway, like in the historical
Yeah.
nature of it. Because we don't really have any like .6 patches, I mean,
Yeah. We got
historically. So
the we got 9.2.6 in
okay,
Shadowlands. That was the prep patch for Faded. It had like the content, the assets for Faded.
gotcha. Yes, I mean, again, that was a very small. I mean, Faded itself was a bigger system, but it was done by like two or three people. I think was like the outcome
Yeah.
of that. So it wasn't a very large effort anyway. So yeah, that's the one outcome is like super high expectations, very low in the delivery, community unhappy, or the opposite of the case where it's like, holy crap, they delivered all this stuff, and everybody's sort of happy, but at the same time, it's like, oh, it'd been great to know about this 2 weeks ago, so I knew I could plan for this, or knew I could plan for something crazy happening, or get ready for it,
Yeah.
or is what it is. So yeah, I don't know if there's ever a good thing about not at least giving some sort of a heads up from my perspective. Because
Yeah,
to be fair, I think that second option very rarely is the case. Like I think generally it's like the less you say about something, the of at least
people,
an established thing,
yeah,
people like make up
people hype
their
it up.
sort of yeah, they're sort of in their head. They're like, oh, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that, and
Yeah,
like everybody gets really hyped about it, and then it is either something totally different or it like delivers like a quarter of what the hype was, and then
yeah,
everyone's sort of upset. So yeah, I don't know. I don't right now I don't like this because not that to be completely fair, like I have zero expectations for 10.2.6. Like if it's literally like, oh, you get like a little bird on your shoulder, if it's actually quote unquote pirate themed and you have to do like a little quest in like Booty Bay or like you have to go back to Freehold for something, right? And it's like you get a
yeah.
parrot mount or parrot shoulder thing cosmetic
That would
and
be
that's
cool.
it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like that was great. That was fun little thing, but I wouldn't care either way, right? Like,
Yeah, I think that I feel like there's a bit of a middle ground that you can hit, right? Like,
hmm
so let's use Season of the Discovery as an example, right? Season of the Discovery was announced at BlizzCon about a month ahead of the release, and they
hmm
didn't give a ton of details. But we got a lot more than just a logo, right? Like you could go and you could do the raid in BlizzCon,
hmm
and you could see like there was no data mining of it, but you could see, for example, some of the runes that classes had through people taking screenshots of the runes that they were given access to as part of the raid experience at BlizzCon.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And as well, they put like even beyond that, they put some on the slides at the BlizzCon presentation announcing Season of Discovery.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yep.
so people like you had some information to like help set people's expectations, right? Nobody was,
For what they were. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
nobody was going in like, oh, these runes are gonna, like I don't know, do something completely insane. Like the most insane one was probably the Warlock one that gave you Metamorphosis, something that didn't exist at all in Classic.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Like the tanking runes for those classes that traditionally weren't tanks, I think were the most interesting, right?
yeah,
And then I guess it was yeah, I guess the mage healing one too, where it was like
yeah,
those previews were good in that you got the expectation in your head that there were going to be this wasn't just like vanilla with like modern abilities bolted on top. Like there were going to be
yeah,
some fundamental differences with the way that some of these classes function, which was cool, which was like okay, now I'm actually sort of this might be the WoW plus people wanted or classic
yeah,
plus that people wanted. And this is like Blizzard's interpretation of that, which is cool. Yeah.
yeah.
No,
But then like
and
the,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but to your point, it wasn't everything. It wasn't like they
Yeah,
were like, here's every rune and how you get it. And
yes.
congratulations,
One
right?
of the cool things about Season of Discovery Unreleased was like the people going and finding things
Oh,
and
yeah.
and like the community element of everybody figuring out where stuff is, how to get it, and then like
Mhm.
you see somebody in chat, right? And they go like, "Oh, hey, I found this."
Yeah.
And that was cool.
Yeah.
Um we have just a logo for 10.2.6 basically. We have a pirate flag. So like we don't really have any idea what it's going to be.
Right. Well, that it's like, it's a skull and crossbones. So like we're thinking
Yeah.
it's a pirate flag, but like,
Oh.
is it a
Oh.
pirate flag? Is it just, or is it just like a death symbol? So the jailer's back,
Oh. Maybe the
right?
jailer's
Like,
back as a pirate.
I did anything to make him better as a character.
I don't know that making him a pirate would make him better, but
No, not at all. But that's what I'm saying is like, there's this idea that it's like, um, that like yeah like that your imagination can run wild with exactly what it is and like the less information that's given and the longer that it goes I guess the other thing that I didn't really talk about is like to be fair some of it could just be like now we don't care right like
yeah,
there was
we got
hype
the
at the beginning
roadmap
of
at the
what it
beginning of the
was
year.
but now it's just like okay 10.2.6 come out great like I didn't number one didn't realize it was coming okay and like also if this is all it is like whatever like I'm just gonna skip it or not gonna interact with whatever it is
Yeah.
and that's sort of yeah that's sort of the other problem with something like this so
Yeah. Like I don't hate the no data mining. Like I know that
yeah
like the like serious do it professionally content creators probably are frustrated by it.
Oh yeah.
But I don't mind no data mining. I yeah,
Y- Yeah, I also I don't think it's excuse me. It's not a bad thing.
yeah.
Because I
Just
think
a
at some
little
point,
extra context.
yeah, the data mining does get a little it gets frustrating sometimes, I'll say, particularly on big patches for me when things are data mined without context. And
Yeah,
so it's like, particularly like we'll use Mistweaver as an example. Like I think, what was it? It was not last patch, but it been a patch before. There was a change made a hot or a part of data mining. They added like a charge field to revival. And so people were like speculating that like, oh, we're gonna get like lower cooldown revival and like you can it'll be charge based and like just like a bunch of speculation about like, oh, are we gonna take this now? And I'm like, that's not a real thing. Like I don't know if we're gonna like it's a fake made up thing. Like you're just making up abilities at this point. So like sometimes it gets frustrating
yep,
from that aspect of it is like, okay, the data mining without context sucks. But yeah, there's got to be some sort of happy medium. I don't know what it is, but I think you know what would be cool, and this is maybe where like Season of Discovery kind of you could take retail like because of the way the community sits around retail, like it would be cool if maybe it was like an ARG type thing. So like
yeah,
I guess it's like augmented reality game or like the kind of a summation of like outside of the game like puzzles where
yeah,
you could figure out information about what's coming through something like that. And that way you're not putting stuff in game files. It's not like,
yeah.
um
And that's the Overwatch team actually did that for multiple hero releases in Overwatch One. Like I think
yeah.
Sombra was like the big one that I remember hearing about.
Yeah, I remember that. And then Destiny 2 is doesn't do it that much anymore, but was notorious for doing that like a couple years ago. With a lot of their like secrets, whether it was for weapons or just for like certain like
Yeah,
aspects of the game. Um,
yeah,
where like yeah, they do like out of game stuff, which was cool. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see what 10.2.6 is. To be completely fair, I don't think we're getting it this week, but I think this week is definitely prep for it.
yeah,
So I'm wondering is as they release this patch, if I'm assuming there's a patch coming or some sort of updates coming with this extended maintenance, if we
yeah,
see a little bit more data mining to exactly what's coming or what's new.
yeah.
Um, so cool. So I think the only other main topic we had was Cataclysm's coming. I know we didn't. I think we mentioned this really early, but Cataclysm Beta's coming or Beta's out. Sorry, as of this recording, which only means Cataclysm Classic coming shortly afterwards. Um, so funnily enough, I think I'm less excited about this than I was maybe like a month ago.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably just because like I'm over Wrath. Like we killed, like I did what I wanted to do in Wrath, and so I'm just sort of done with that game. So, and to be fair, I'm not super tied to the guild I was playing with, so there's not that sort of like need to log in and continue to farm it. So, but yeah, Cataclysm Beta is live. There's a so you can sign. You had to sign up
With
or opt into it.
caveats. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess with caveats, but yeah, it's live and you can log in and test some things. There are certain things that aren't enabled, which I will be completely fair. The first one on this list, I forgot this was a Cata thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was a Mist thing. So first thing is basically Blizzard also put out a post about what is available and what's not, or what is available, what is not available for testing, and then also some issues you'll see that they know are issues within the game. And so the first one on the list is Reforging not available. Forgot that was a thing
Yep.
that Kata brought with it. So reach forging not available. Archaeology, again, for whatever reason, I thought archaeology was a Wrath thing.
You've been playing Wrath, did you not? I mean,
I did. Oh, I don't do professions. So,
okay. All right.
well, I lied. I did engineering because
Do,
everyone
do,
is
do you not
engineering. But
remember what was it? Was it Jinrock the Breaker? What was the name of that stupid weapon? The two-handed sword that was like pre-raid Biss?
yeah, yeah, there was the purple sword. Yeah,
That
the only
like
reason I did it was because there was a skeleton raptor mount
oh yeah.
you could get from it. Um, but yeah, I thought it was earlier. Archaeology. Can't do archaeology. Goblins and Worgans aren't available. Remember that. Transmog not available. All the guild systems aren't available. You can't level past 80, which is interesting. And basically all the end game stuff
Yeah.
not there. Um,
So this is like basically the Cata beta is the Cata versions of the zones,
Yep. The
which
lower zones. So
you can kind of just go into on retail.
exactly.
There's a big kinda tacked on there, right? Because while the zone content is ultimately the same, the tuning is not.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, you don't get to play with the old classes, so you get
right. That's
the
the other thing.
updated
Talent
Cata
trees.
talent trees. Yeah,
Yeah, so you can spec marksman and you can one shot your way from level 10 to 80.
that is true. That is true.
Aim shot is ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, beta's out there to test. I'm probably not gonna play beta. I probably will play on release. Um, but yeah, dude, I so forgot about reforging, which
Yeah.
which is interesting. So it's funny. It's funny. People, there was a tweet today that I saw from Stans, the or Stanzilla, the one of the devs for WeakOrs,
Hmm.
um, and talking about the fact that like people were saying like, oh, reforging wasn't like a great system, or what was the tweet? It was something about like maybe bringing reforging into retail. They're back into retail, and I think the biggest problem, and Stanzilla makes a really good point, is like there's too much gear available in retail.
Yeah.
Like
The
they
point
like
of reforging was to let you take a piece of gear that was not great stats for you and turn it into something that was better. But
yeah,
now you
or
just go to a key until
yeah,
you
you
get the
can
one you
literally
want.
any stack combination you want. You want high mastery, low haste. You want low mastery, high haste. There is
Yeah.
a item in some dungeon somewhere that will drop that combination, right? For whatever
Eh,
slot you want.
not always true. There have been cases where like Brewmaster's been like crit verse forever, right?
Hmm.
There have been tiers where there's like no high eye level crit verse gloves or whatever. So you're like, there's just not one in the dungeon pool. Or actually, I guess the more common case is there's not one in the dungeon pool, but there is one from like raid, and so your
Yeah,
options are like a heroic one from raid or being a mythic raider, right? So
yeah,
there's a huge chunk of people that are like, well, you take your higher item level vault gloves that have like crit mastery or something instead.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fair, but I think still there's just too much gear. Because I think the other thing that Sanzilla brought up was like there was less gear. So like while reforging was used in your case to basically make it maybe a bad piece slightly better. To be fair, sometimes it's like your best in slot piece you'd reforge
Yeah,
because you'd want like a different combination of stats.
yeah,
And there was just generally less gear, so you would always basically, in my mind, the way that I remember Kata and even Miss when reforging was still a case, there was always like two items in a raid for you in a slot, and you basically picked one of the two, and then you would reforge the one to like the specific stat mix you
yeah.
wanted. Um,
This also went along with like hit and expertise still exist
yeah, we're
in
still there. Yeah,
Cataclysm, and so part of the problem that reforging was trying to solve was letting you manage your hit cap, because hit and expertise have a cap that's very obtainable.
yeah,
We don't really
yeah.
have anything like that in retail. There's no equivalent, and there hasn't been since like Mists.
No, there's no caps or breakpoints. I mean, I
There were
guess Miss.
breakpoints in like Mists, but they were way higher, right?
Yeah,
You weren't
yeah,
hitting
definitely.
them in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely not in retail. Like they've sort of done away with that. I think like the last clear example that I remember was like there was a haste cap for Mistweaver at the end of or in a BFA or not BFA. What was the one after BFA?
Shadowlands?
Shadowlands. Because of Fallen Order bugged out if you got above 33% health or 33%
I
haste.
remember that.
So
Yep.
it did less healing the more
Yep.
haste you had, which was funny. But no, so I mean, yeah, like Reforging's back in Cata. Cata, I think I mentioned this, like one of the least played expansions for me. So
I
it'll
played a
be
ton of Cat. I
yeah,
have
that
not done any of the raids though.
yeah, that was I literally I killed the first raid with my guild and then I got a new position at my job. So I spent the next like year and a half traveling every week and it's very
Oh yeah.
difficult to raid when you're
Yeah.
traveling. So,
Raiding on a laptop on hotel Wi-Fi, not
yeah.
great.
No, it was not the best experience. So, but no, I'm excited to get back to it. But yeah, Cata Classic. coming in hot. We'll see how we'll see how long this lasts. So it's, to be fair, it'll be interesting to see what people's initial thoughts of Cata are, because Cata, I think universally, I would say before Shadowlands was considered the worst expansion Blizzard had put out. Um,
Mm,
like what's worse?
there's
Like
like WoD, right? But WoD is a different kind of worse. It's like WoD is worse from the perspective of just not having content. Dragon
right,
Soul is, I think, the first raid where people were actually like, "Yo, this is terrible."
yeah,
And so that's noteworthy. The other noteworthy thing is that Dragon Soul was at the time, I think, the longest patch that WoW had ever
it
had.
was.
Um,
Yeah,
so that was a big problem too.
but and I
And
think yeah. Well, the problem when you compare Dragon Soul to what was the Siege of Orgrimmar, which was
mhm,
the final raid in WoD, is like Siege of Orgrimmar top three
in
raid.
mists, yeah,
Or was Siege of Mist? What was the final raid in WoD?
Hellfire, Fire
Oh,
Citadel.
well, still, I mean, still very okay.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah,
yeah, but
like
still,
Siege
still like
and
top
Hellfire
five raid.
Citadel. Yeah,
Yeah, still like solid raids there. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I always mix them up. But yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting to see how. Yeah, my point is, I'd be interested to see how people look at Kata now. Because I think Dragon Soul is not as bad as people will remember.
yeah.
Um, I think to be fair, I think Nefarian is the worst end boss. Like, well, I can't say that because I just killed Fire. But one of the worst end bosses, at least in terms of sentiment, I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, I think looking back, the worst end boss that I have done has got to be Queen Ishara.
Really.
Oh yeah,
Oh, dude. See,
that
I
intermission, the like complete nonsense phase one where I just stand in a corner and tank the mob.
yeah.
The the whole like line of sight mechanic where I spend half of phase two just like not doing anything to let my
Oh,
stacks
I
reset.
forgot about that.
The fact that the tank mechanic is a random, like spell queued, no cast time magic nuke in an era
Yeah.
where they removed all the tank magic defensives.
I guess it would depend on. I forgot that
Like that's
Ajara
and
had
that's
the
kind of
line of
like
sight. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
like I would not I like Firac, but I'm not healing it, right? And you might be like, yeah, Queen Ajara was fine, but you also didn't have to deal with the bullshit of the
Yeah.
tank roll on that fight, right?
But so you would say Queen Ajara is worse than N'Zoth?
Oh yeah. Nizoth was like kind of a boring fight. Like it was pretty straightforward, but it was like it, and maybe this is kind of skewed because of corruption, but like corruption lets you do some silly things.
Yeah.
Like it was a different
Yeah.
kind of fun. It wasn't like a really hard individually engaging fight, but then like having it on farm and pushing corruption and like trying to do dumb shit on that fight was fun.
Yeah. I think I'm just scarred by the progression on that and
You
like
were tanking that, right?
yeah, I tanked it and
Yeah.
moving the underneath mob, the whatever the
Yeah.
psychic thing. That
We have memes about me on that to this day.
dude, that like I have never been so like I would say like my frustration level tanking that is very similar to my frustration level healing Fyrak in terms of just like the movement on that fight to this day. I can clearly remember the fact that like you basically couldn't use any of the eye stalks around the edge of the room because the mob you tanked on there wouldn't move near them. So like he would move near them and then he would slowly walk away because like there was some sort of like invisible barrier. And so like you have no idea how many pulls we lost to like the boss just like slowly walking away from the eye stalk and
I'm
like
pretty
keep us
sure
like
I could
killing it.
still do the Psychus route that I did.
I probably could. I mean, to be fair, I probably could go back and do it by memory, but like not happy about it, like
But
not having fun.
then at the same time, right? Like during Prague, I went one like row of tentacles too far
Yeah.
and got turned around. And that's one of the memes that came out of that fight is like me getting lost downstairs and everybody's like, where
That
the
was
hell are you going?
To be fair, like I've definitely had a couple pulls like that too, where it's like you basically are like you get halfway turned around, or like your camera isn't in the exact position you're expecting. Because I did everything basically by my camera position mostly, right?
Yeah,
So it's like, okay, I'm expecting this eye stalk to be here, this one to be here, and I
yeah,
move into the center one. And it's like you're off basically like 30 or 45 degrees. Now
yeah,
you're like, holy shit, like where's the mom I'm supposed to be at, right? And like
yeah,
my DPS is like, we have it at half health. You got to move now, like roll. And I was like, oh, okay. Like where am I rolling to?
yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I
I
was.
think Spine of Deathwing is going to be one that lives up to the hate. I don't know
Yeah.
about the actual madness of Deathwing fight though. We'll see.
Yeah, I think I mean Madness's issue, at least from my remembering of it, was never the difficulty of it. It was always the fact that like you never really engaged Nefarian, right? Which is
Yeah,
like the biggest issue is like you fought his feet and then
yeah,
you punched him in the jaw.
yeah,
Like it just was a weird way to end the tier. And like yeah, I think Spine will just be as frustrating as it was back then. Just
yeah. I think
I think
Spine is
nowadays it'll
like
actually be
mechanically
worse.
frustrating.
Yeah, and I think it honestly might be worse with like the fact that we are gonna just generally players are better now.
Oh
And I
yeah.
wonder maybe I guess that's the interesting part is like here is this the expansion we sort of hit that inflection point of like we were as good as we were
Well,
back then.
there's there's some like ongoing questions about Cata tuning, and this is kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about because I don't think they figured it out yet.
Hmm.
Like we don't know what the lockout system is going to be in Cata. I don't believe that's one of the things that they were like open to changing. We don't
Hmm.
know what like heroic dungeon tuning is going to be like. We don't know
That's
if they're
true.
going to tune down the raids to more closely match like ICC, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the next step along the path of raising raid difficulty to that ultimately ends where we are now, right? I guess you
Hmm.
could say it ended in Sepulcher in some ways and it has brought back down, except for
Yeah.
Tendril. Um,
Slightly.
um, and right. So we don't know if they're going to be like, okay, we are as this is a big actually kind of inflection point for Classic as a project, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Like Wrath was big in the where they Wrath and TPC were both like pretty big breaking points where they said we're not doing no changes.
Yeah.
They did a little bit of that in Classic, but it was always a back and forth. But then you hit like Wrath of Lich King PTR, and what people can do with Unholy DKs on private servers without like a good reference implementation of Unholy DKs on private servers, what
Yeah.
they can do compared to any other DPS in the game is completely unreal.
Oh yeah, they're ridiculous. Like yeah.
And they changed it because it was. I think they changed it in Ulduar. I don't think they did it for
Not
Nax
right away, yeah.
Ramus, but
Yeah.
like it became very clear by Ulduar that that had to change.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean and it'll be yeah, like I said, like you said, it'll be interesting to see how they actually deal with tuning. I, for one, if they do touch any tuning, I believe it'll be on the dungeon front and not on the raid front. I think they will leave my I guess I guess prediction or opinion is they'll leave raids pretty much at the same level of difficulty that they're at
Yeah,
today, right? And I think if they do that, then unfortunately, I think that's gonna make people start clamoring to go back and do vanilla TBC Wrath that loop
yeah,
again. Right, because I think this is where like I think I've said this before. Like Kata is like your first step into like a modern raid,
yeah,
right? Like it's where you have personal responsibility, like individual mechanics people have to do, multiple mechanics happening at the same time that need to be
yes,
dealt with differently depending on what your role is
yeah.
in the raid group. So
That's one of
yeah,
the things that like I was explaining to my brother last night, like kind of where the difficulty is in raiding. He was like asking about some fire arc mechanics. I was like, well,
yeah,
it's like the thing is there's lots of stuff happening at the same time. You have to do
right,
all of. You have to do your rotation. You have to do your healing. You have to do whatever, and then you also have to deal with this mechanic happening at the same time as this other mechanic. It's like everything individually is easy ish. Like your rotation may not be, but like ish, easy
yeah.
ish. And doing it at the same time is hard. And this is kind of is where we start getting to like lots of things happening at the same time.
Right, yeah, and like management across the group. Because the other thing too is like even like the individual mechanic might be easy, but there's also like you're relying on other people in your raid to make a decision, and you have to make a similar decision to them. Like the soaks in P1, right? You have to do like the mythic soaks in P1. Like you have to
Yeah.
basically make sure people understand it's like 1, 2, 3, and like
Yeah.
certain people are in the center one versus the side ones, and like yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what they exactly do with Kata, but
Yeah.
I expect the raids to be difficulty
I'm
wise very similar.
I'm really curious. I'm really, really curious because this is probably the point where they're going to have to make a decision and decide, are we going to flatten the difficulty curve and keep everything at ICC level for the rest of the classic project?
Hmm.
Or are we going to let the difficulty continue to ramp up and eventually reach the point that, like, it's too hard for people?
Yeah, you're doing 400 pull end bosses, right?
Yeah.
Like you have Fallen Avatar and
Yeah.
Kill Jaden type level of
Yeah.
BS, right? For yeah, yeah. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what they do. But yeah, I would agree that this is that piece of is this easy mode Kata? Because that's the other thing is like eventually you get to the point where you're literally just playing retail.
Yeah.
Like I think as soon as they hit Legion, like it would be wild to me that they continue past because it went WAD into Legion, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't like you hit Legion and you're basically playing a worse version of retail potentially,
Now,
depending on the era, I guess.
there's their goal. One of the things, their goal for the next several expansions of having like 18-month expansions for retail
Hmm.
actually brings the timeline pretty close to in line with classic. So classic stops gaining on retail.
Yeah.
So classic is then always like 10 years behind retail.
Yeah, which I mean, if that's what they want, I don't I guess it depends on what they actually want from the classic experience at that
Yeah.
point. Cause like at that point, are you just jumping in for a couple weeks to play the nostalgia value of it? Or like
Yeah.
is there any real reason to like replay this version of the game? Because like you have to think like they're like Shadowlands Classic is gonna be dead because like no one's wanna
And they're gonna have, like, they're gonna, like, I
like if
don't
they
think
actually get there.
I don't think that like Legion Classic is going to have I don't think it's going to have Fallen Avatar at the same level that it, or Kill Jaden at the same level that it did in the like actual Legion. I don't think anybody wants that. There are some bosses that people are like, yeah, I want to do this as it was, but those
Hmm.
aren't those aren't.
No, to be fair, that like no changes thing in my mind has it just I feel like it stops with Cataclysm. Like I feel like there's not
Yeah,
the amount of like I don't know what the right term is, but like the amount of love for that.
as it
Um,
was. Yeah,
yeah, like for like if you're not talking, vanilla TBC and Wrath. Like I think
yeah,
those three expansions, there's a lot of people that play them and still play them and like grew up playing them and like that's where they want like, hey, I want to play the
yeah,
same game I played,
yeah.
20 years ago.
And I think
Um,
there's also a degree of like the changes or no changes vanilla was so different from original vanilla that I think a lot of the people that were like, yeah, no changes sounds good, especially you
mhm.
have to keep in mind this classic came out during BFA, which is widely regarded as a bad expansion with some good raids.
Yeah.
Um, And so no changes I think was very appealing to people at the time because of how bungled the systems were in BFA.
Yeah.
And then you go through vanilla again and it's completely different. Gold is a complete non-factor. Like people
Yeah.
talked about like, oh man, you couldn't change talents, it was too expensive, so you just like had to like pick your talents that were good. No, people change talents multiple times a day in
Yeah.
classic vanilla. And all this other stuff like that, like it was a completely different experience, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think people still had a good time with it, but
Yeah.
it did disabuse a lot of people of the notion that no changes means the same experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean I guess it'll be it will be interesting to see how they keep the power level or like the difficulty level of the end game content in Cata, because I think that'll basically, to your point, sort of set the tone for any future classic expansion,
Yeah.
right? And so, I mean, to my point, to from my opinion, I think keeping like lowering dungeon difficulty, I think is fine. Like they're typically a non-factor used early. It's
Yeah.
fine to sort of lower the difficulty there. But I think in my mind, if they lower raid difficulty, then it's literally like I'm just playing LFR versions of
Yeah.
this, and like it's just not as
That's actually going to be a really interesting one. Like, they didn't initially add Random Dungeon Finder to Wrath.
yeah. Well, no,
Did they finally add it? They have like, they did
yeah.
like
So
some halfway
they
solution,
added.
right?
Well, no, they fully added it.
Oh,
So
they
like you
fully
can
added
just
it?
queue out.
Okay.
You can just queue up and get into dungeons
But
now.
is
They
it
also,
only like people on your realm, or is it everyone?
I think it's everyone.
Okay.
I want to say, or maybe on your realm. I don't actually know the population size, but they also added like their buff dungeons to the random dungeon finder. So you
Right.
can do like gamma dungeons, which are like the highest
Right.
level.
I
I think
forgot
they're
about those. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and random dungeon finder, which I think they'll probably do the same thing. Like
Yeah.
the alpha, beta, gamma dungeon system that they added, basically slowly increasing dungeon difficulty. I think worked well in Wrath, right? It
Yeah.
kept those dungeons relevant and things like that. So I think they're gonna they think they
Yeah.
said they'll continue that in Kata, but
Yeah. Which is nice. Like that was always for me when I was playing these expansions. Dungeons are the things that I did. Like I
Mhm.
didn't raid, but I did a lot of dungeons. And one of the nice things about Cata dungeons is that they were a lot more fun to do than like random Wrath dungeons.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, they were definitely a lot of failed dungeons. Um, one final thing before we wrap up the podcast for today. I don't know if you've been keeping an eye on the MDI and
I have Echo lost.
Echo Lost.
Lost straight up too, I think. So I didn't get a chance to watch their I think what
They
was their
lost
final key?
in
Rise?
Rise of all things by
I know that matchup
3
very well.
seconds.
Yeah, that was close then. That
Yeah,
was they just got outplayed then. That's wild.
that's yeah.
That's
It
awesome.
was
Well, it's not
really
awesome.
something.
I shouldn't cheer for someone losing, but it's nice to see a different team win. I'll be happy for they were playing mandatory, right? So I'll be happy for
Yeah,
mandatory
yeah.
because they won, not because Echo lost. That would be too mean. That would be mean.
But yeah, that is going to be it for the show today. Thank you all for watching and or listening. And if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support it and the other work that we do over at the Peak of Serenity, you can do that at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. It is the best place to talk about how weird it is that they just buffed the damage on Jade Fire Stomp? Question mark?
Nerf the healing? What? Hello?
Hello? Hello? Mr. Blizzard, are you listening?
What's going on?
Yeah, that's going to be it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.